Hey everyone, Elizabeth here. Hope all is well. Looks like we're going to have some restricted times ahead, more restrictive energy. There is a video that I'm going to link down below. It's called the Saturnization of Humanity with a British guy, astrologer, and his name is Brian. I can't remember his last name, but the video came out a couple years ago, and over the last couple years I've re-listened to this video about 4 or 5 times just to kind of get like refreshed and updated with it, because as we're starting to transition into this time frame of more restricted energy, which we've kind of had in and out, like the lungs of life have been going in and out of restriction and freedom and restriction and freedom. It's a lot since World War II, so obviously a lot of restricted times and then a little bit more relaxed here, but that was like the gateway to communism, where there, in Europe, where you had a lot of restriction. And so that video is extremely fascinating, and it is extremely fascinating if you're older, like in your 50s and 60s, because what has happened is that the planetary alignments have kind of shifted from a Jupiter-born generation to Saturn-born generation. So if you are a baby boomer and you experienced life in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, where you had all this freedom to run around and play, and now seeing where humanity is led to this current place in time, these things help connect the dots. I'm not saying he's 100% right or accurate on everything, but it is, this is not about prediction. It's just looking at the patterns in the sky and seeing what's happening in this current time. So, Aquarius in the old Vedic system is ruled by Saturn. In Western astrology, they also, use Uranus in that sense. So Saturn is a very restrictive energy, and where we are kind of headed toward this more modern communistic time is when I've analyzed certain things and listened to other people who are in this kind of freedom area, who are really good at analyzing and looking at stuff. It's just really interesting to see. I don't even want to say it's interesting. It's devastating to see. A lot of what's happening right now seems to be a lot of engineered events or chaos that are leading toward these restrictive policies, policy changes, or new laws that are getting put into place. So I don't focus a lot of my attention span on a lot of low-level bullshit drama, but this whole like John Medideo situation seemed to have been more of a psyop to lead to more restricted laws in California as well as in Florida. So those laws do prevent freedom of speech, some very, very restricted. Like, it's insane. What is it, like $250,000 for like littering with flyers or pamphlets that kind of go against, criticizes other groups or religious groups. You have to read about it. I think it's HB 269, and then whatever that guy did in California as well also led to additional censorship laws that are going toward against hate speech. But a lot of what seems is that this person received funding from various sources and just does not really seem to be an authentic person in this movement. It seems like it's more of an engineered movement that could be more federal government psyop. This whole stuff of what's happened in Maine with this guy that has gone around shooting up. Interestingly enough, Maine, you can look this up in mainstream news, local Maine news sources, that Maine over the last, or in October, has put into place 450 new laws. That's a lot. I don't know if any of that has any sort of gun restriction laws that, maybe are going to happen, because this military guy, I thought he was military, went and shot everything up for a while. They were saying there's like 13 injured, which that's an important Masonic number. So it's always trying to look at certain things, and where we are at now is really trying to decipher like what is real and what is I don't want to say the word fake, but what is engineered. So things that are happening naturally, like somebody just went off, mentally went off. Maybe they're depressed on a bunch of meds and they just snapped and decided to do these cruel things to people, versus what is an engineered psyop that's causing all these chaotic, tragic events that are leading toward more policies that are going to lead us to a more restrictive culture and society. A Saturn influenced society is not going to be a cakewalk. That, you know, when I was younger and as an Aquarius, I was like, oh, the age of Aquarius, like, you know, we've learned all this shit about brotherhood and holding hands with each other around the globe and all this stuff. And I never thought that we would ever get to where we are today, seeing this really dark side of it. And the more restrictions that we have, you know, the more it's going to fuel a lot of anger and hate, and people are going to get pissed. And, you know, is it going to lead to change that's happening in a violent way? I got my ass ripped about the Amazon video that I just did, you know, by some people. And I don't know if people quite understand or get it. Like, to some degree, we probably all are earning money from really bogus people or sources. For example, I've been put back at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to teach fitness, and I didn't want to go. And I thought, well, you know, I'm always put in these weird, funky situations to kind of relearn everything. And there's been a couple of people that I've talked to who are very critical of Bill Gates, but they just detach everything. They just find their work life completely separate. You know, they think like the help that they're doing with all these like clinics in Africa and stuff is very helpful, and they detach from their disgust for Bill Gates. So, you know, it's like, I totally get it about the whole shopping on Amazon. Like, I cannot willfully support and put energy into a company like that I am not an advocate for, that I'm not passionate for. And I'm not saying everybody else should be doing the same, because I don't believe in control of other people and their decisions, but I do think we kind of reap what we sow. And so there are going to be consequences when these giant fucking behemoth companies are going to be the only employers that we're going to have to work for, because there's going to be no such thing as small business and entrepreneurship that can really happen. You know, in places like Seattle, we have major real estate buildings. I don't want to say just all buildings, just the retail spaces in buildings. Like, we have major spaces, 30, 40, 50,000 square foot spaces that have been empty for years. For example, like Bed Bath & Beyond closed in like 2018. That's where, like, if I ever needed kitchen stuff, I would just run downtown to there, you know, and grab stuff, because I always preferred to go there before like anywhere like a Target. Although Bed Bath & Beyond got cheap over the last few years. But where I'm going with this is, we have like major retail that can't even stay open and keep jobs in our local economy. When I first moved to Seattle, there was nothing but jobs. This place was extremely abundant. I knew, because I worked at the government at the time and I didn't have a good experience there, so I was trying to get out immediately. But I knew if something happened to me and I lost my job, I could immediately walk into any grocery store or any Starbucks or any sort of company like that and get a job and get hired spot on, day on, and start the next day, at least to get, you know, some income coming in. Before having to find something else that was more within my field, because those type of things can take a while, because the job market was always kind of competitive in Seattle, but it was a very abundant place. So as I've been watching, you know, seeing the news, like all these places like Targets and our Bartels are closing, a lot of the reason why these places are closing is because of inventory loss due to the amount of theft that has been happening, and that predominantly happens from the homeless, who are, you know, not the people where oops, something happened, but it's more of like the drug addict people that are not contributing to society. That inventory loss has created them to have to go either bankrupt or close their facility doors. Now, as we're watching all of this engineered chaos, those policies were created by our progressive mayors. Our fucking progressive mayors have not allowed the store employees to run and chase after them. People in the Upper Queen Anne Safeway or any other Safeway grocery store in this city has had to watch people just walk out with cartloads of shit, and by the time they call the cops, it's going to take them 30 to 60 minutes to get there, and those people are going to be long gone. They were not allowed to touch hands on that person. You know, it's like, I understand the whole nonviolence thing, but at some point when you're just getting absolutely ripped off, that's where kindness and compassion has been a weakness, and it's been taken advantage of, because those people have ruined it all for everybody else. And they've also ruined jobs, because some of these people, like at Lower Queen Anne Bartels, there was a lady, you know, she was living in a hotel for a while during COVID because her and her husband had such a combative relationship. She couldn't live at home anymore, and she had to live out of a hotel, and she worked at Bartels for like 15 to 20 years. You know, she was a lifelong person, and she was old. She was like she was in her 60s probably, you know. She wasn't really trying to find a new job or a new career. And the funniest part about this is, like, Amazon Fresh isn't getting robbed. And I kind of wonder, as I did that video yesterday, and I got ripped apart for that, I'm like, is part of this chaotic policies that are put into place by our governing agencies or by our local councilmen and politicians, have they allowed this chaos to happen so all of these corporations like an Amazon Fresh can now gobble up all that retail space and allow no employees but maybe a few people to work? How many people work in a grocery store, and then how many people work at Amazon Fresh? Amazon Fresh does not allow, you know, it's all that phone thing. So I think how it works is you might have some employees that work there and get your order together when you do it online. But I think also if you go in, it's all app-based. So you're just walking through a metal detector and all of that stuff is getting scanned to your phone. So I don't know if you can get into that store if you're homeless, or if you can't get in if you don't have a phone and an app. I don't know that because I don't support it. But, you know, it kind of just makes me wonder. It's like, you know, Amazon Fresh, those grocery stores that are popping up all over Seattle, they're not the ones getting massively robbed. Why is that? It's a really good question to have. I don't want to, you know, stir up a conspiracy, but if I'm starting to think about it, I'm like, none of this kind of makes any sense. Because even grocery stores couldn't even survive downtown, especially during COVID when everybody was shut down. So if you live downtown, you kind of have to drive out to a neighborhood or even a suburb, or you could just start going to these local Amazon Fresh stores. And so when we're making a gateway for a company like that, it's still not providing jobs, or at least not providing as many as a normal grocery store does or would, because they're mostly an employee-less AI-based company. I personally cannot support that because I am not in support or in direct alignment with the AI energy, which is part of the, you know, the Luciferian doctrine. I am not in part of AI taking over human jobs. I want to do another video on this, but if you think about it all, in reality, life is free. God has provided all of it. So as we're stuck in this satanic fucking money-based system where we need money to survive, we better be in support for humanity, and jobs that are ran by people and supported by people. I just think, I had a good thought, and now I just kind of just popped out of my head. I think it had to do with the freedom movement. I'm trying to talk a little bit, and my neighbors are like coming out into the park, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't really want people listening to me, but because they're not in the same mindset as I am. But yeah, as we move through this restrictive time, I think that video is just worth listening to, because you can see where the shift between a Jupiter-based society, which is where baby boomers and former generations have been born, which Jupiter is about abundance, It has a little bit more freedom energy. And then as you see Saturn start to take over, you see more restrictions, you see communism. So the sign and symbols of Jupiter and Saturn are almost inverted from one another. So you see a lot of that, the sickle, which the sickle is, you know, a prominent symbol in communism. It's very well worth watching, even if you don't believe in anything like astrology. Once again, it's from a few years ago, so he might be miss a few points on things. I'm not saying you'll agree with everything that he talks about, but you know, we are dealing with a system that they are high level occultists and magicians, and so you kind of have to know thy enemy. And these people are banking on a lot of this restrictive energy for them to create their golden age, which is like the horror novel life for us normal, compassionate, loving, empathic human beings. All right. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Have a great day. Bye-bye.